What's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and I'm here to give you guys our mid-patch update for patch 10.15. Like always, we're going to be following up on our tier list that we released in our initial patch rundown and give you guys a new tier list to help you guys in your climb. There are plenty of balance changes in this patch, and some of them were pretty big, so let's go ahead and talk about them. I'm excited to be your host for this video, so let's go ahead and get started. But before we do that though, you know what time it is. It's time for our question of the day. Is there anything regarding League system that you want to see changed? I've always been curious how games would be if you could only build 5 items instead of 6. I'm not saying to make this change, I'd just be very interested and see what would happen. While I don't really believe it'd be the smartest change, I think it'd just be extremely fun. Aside from that, I think I would want to revert from the plants being removed from Summoner's Rift. They can create a layer of frustration for me personally, and I think that sometimes simplifying the game is a better option. Let me know your answers in the comments down below, and also if you got a minute, I want you guys to check out ProGuides.com. We are hosting a ton of live classes that players are attending to take their gameplay to the next level, and if you want to get better, you need to check it out. To kick things off, we're going to be running it through the top lane. Fiddlesticks, Orange, Shen, and Irelia received some changes this patch, and I'm sure that you guys want an update on them. Our top lane tier list remains relatively the same, but of these champions that received changes, we've decided to bump Shen up from the S tier into the OP tier.
A demonstration of superior judgment.
We honestly didn't anticipate Shen becoming this strong following the buff to his passive. Our analysts already knew that he was in a good spot and felt like he didn't really need a buff to begin with, but buffing a champion that's already strong is usually overkill regardless. Shen's been finding a ton of success across all elos. Both low elo and high elo players have pushed Shen's win rate above 52%, and his play rate is significantly higher this patch than previous ones. In Platinum and higher, Shen is currently the second most popular top lane champion in the game and the 7th most popular across all of the ranks. He's a pretty incredible pick right now because of that boost that he got to his shield. Trading against him feels nearly impossible as he soaks up a ton of damage while dealing a ton if he's able to land his taunt. And when his opponents finally crack through his passive shield, Shen also has his W to protect him as well. And when both of these cooldowns are expended, he can just sit back and wait for them to come back off cooldown. With stronger trading, Shen is able to take lane priority way more often. With more lane priority, he's able to ult in order to assist his teammates with basically no downsides. Shen's map pressure is essentially global, as he can go anywhere that his allies decide to go. He's a great answer to the other champions that love roaming, such as Quinn, since leaving lane doesn't really guarantee the same numbers advantage as it would be when he's facing another top laner.
Fine, we go.
While Ornn's placement isn't changing, we do want to mention that his win rate actually dropped about 0.5% overall and a whole percent in high elo. 3 armor actually did it to him, as players are finding it much easier to bully him out of lane than before.
Fight for the first lens!
Irelia's win rates have climbed by a moderate amount, and in high elo, her win rates are getting closer and closer to the fabled 50% mark. If you hate playing against her, then well, she's definitely worth a ban at this point because mains and enthusiasts are finally finding a way to bring her back into the game. Finally, Fiddlesticks nerfs were enough. His win rate dropped significantly this patch, and players don't even want to touch him with a 3-foot pole unless he's headed into the jungle now. The reduced healing from minions has taken a toll on Fiddlestick's oppressive laning, and it definitely makes sense. Buffing it is what made him a viable solo laner, so nerfing it should then push him out of the lane. He's moved from the C tier as a result of this nerf. The only other change that we made to the tier list is that Kled has moved to the A tier.
Holy shit, where are we?
While he's still a powerful pick, Shen's presence in the top lane definitely hurts a lot. Kled is a champion that loves to roam, leave lane, and pressure the rest of the map. And with Shen's spike in popularity, it's much harder for Kled to have the same impact as before, as a lot of his counters are also rather popular at the moment. Total side note, but did you guys ever think that Kled just looked like Rengar, but like Yordle? Anyway, with that being said, the OP picks in the top lane are Darius and Shen. Following them in the S tier are Fiora, Garen, Volibear, Jax, Urgot, Nasus, Singed, Maokai, and Camille. Alright, let's go ahead and run through the jungle. In the jungle, Lilia was introduced and we saw some balance changes to Skarner, Gragas, and Lee Sin. We've had some time to let the patch play out a little bit and have an update for you on all of these champions. First up, we placed Lilia in the B tier.
Me! A dream come true.
We were kind of expecting her to be OP next patch because of the patterns that we tend to see. A champion is released, their initial win rate are low, Riot buffs them, and then they succeed and they become broken. We don't necessarily think that Lilia has hit the broken stage because at the moment she doesn't really feel like she deals enough damage considering the risks that she has to take on landing her Q. While Lilia's damage isn't really low, it doesn't seem like she's rewarded enough for her gameplay. Skarner is the next, and our analysts have pushed him down to the B tier.
My stinger brings ugly death.
In spite of some massive buffs, Skarner still isn't performing at an exceptional level and he still usually feels average in most games. His ultimate is one of the best ones in the game and he still holds a merit as a pick because of this. You can literally just run into your lane and kidnap you. It's kinda stinks. Gragas did receive buffs, but they didn't really amount to much.
If you're buying, I'm in.
In high elo, Gragas' win rate in the jungle went up by less than 0.5%, and we're gonna stand by our decision and place him in the B tier for now.
Your will, my hands.
Lee Sin was moved down to the A tier in this mid-patch update because his win rates were way too low for us to continue to justify his placement in the S tier. He's definitely in the if you're good at him, then he's really good tier, but most players just aren't good enough. His win rate in Platinum and higher is barely sitting above 46%, and this statistic doesn't really change when you look at all of the ranks. His win rate is extremely low, but because of his high mechanical skill ceiling, it's actually okay to be a little bit more lenient towards him because of his outplay potential, and if you mastered him, you're most likely going to be doing rather well with him. A guy like him takes a ton of practice, but if you're still interested in mastering him, then why not try practicing with a coach on ProGuides.com. We've got a ton of them, and we would love nothing more than to help you guys improve and pick up a new champion. Anyway, let's go ahead and run through our OP picks, which are Kha'Zix and Karthus.
The kiss of death.
Karthus has continued to dominate the jungle and has earned his place alongside Kha'Zix as an OP pick. While we're trying to be rather conservative when designating champions as OP, Karthus is undeniably one of the best junglers in the game, and subjectively one of the top 2. Players across all ranks are finding great amount of success with him because he deals an immense amount of damage and also provides a good amount of global pressure with his ultimate. Tanks have been gaining more traction, and these sort of matchups are free farm festivals for Karthus as he can power farm and just scale up without any concerns. In the S tier we have Fiddlesticks, Volibear, Nunu, Rek'Sai, Shaco, Elise, Warwick, Kayn, Evelynn, Nidalee, Zac, and Graves. Alright, next up let's go ahead and get into the mid lane. Twisted Fate and Swain are the mid laners this patch that we've got updates for you guys. First up, Twisted Fate was hit much harder than expected.
Looks like trouble.
Our analyst noted that the nerf that he received this W was a big one, but because he was so strong prior to this nerf, they didn't really expect him to drop this hard. However, Twisted Fate's win rate has plummeted so much this patch that he holds a 47.5% win rate, and the only bracket that he's still finding success in is in High Diamond. The potential is still there, and Twisted Fate's presence is notable on Summoner's Rift. However, he's objectively much weaker than before, and it's also harder to exert the same amount of pressure that you once were able to with him. There are way too many situations where the increased cooldown on his W hurt him. Even if you're only trying to farm, less blue cards makes it harder to clear out the waves. We've moved him down to the B tier for now. Next up is Swain.
Fear the power you do not see.
Swain, long story short, is super OP in low elo and relatively strong in high elo. Thus, we place him in the A tier. If he continues performing at the level that he's at, our analysts are definitely going to have to push him up to the S tier because of the fact that he flexes pretty well into other roles as well. Swain is the sort of champion that has a bit of everything that you want in a solo queue carry. He's got damage, he doesn't get one shot, and he also brings a ton of utility to table as well as a ton of sustain. Even if the utility isn't used for your teammates' sake, you can still utilize Swain's kit for your own purposes. Find out where the enemy jungler is, pull crowd control enemies into you, and follow up with your own lockdown. His kit is pretty stacked, and it's definitely pretty nice that Swain isn't super popular right now because a lot of players don't know the best way of countering him as a result. Just make sure you build some anti-heal if you're ever up against a Swain. One last change that we made to the mid lane tier is that we moved Aurelia down to the B tier.
Tyrant.
This change was just one that we made in cleaning up the list. While she did receive a buff, she's still struggling a little bit in the mid lane, and the majority of players struggle to acquire victory with her there. The S tier remains untouched from the beginning of the patch with Fizz, Vladimir, Zed, Talon, Kassadin, Katarina, Echo, Diana, Sylas, Galio, Annie, Nocturne, and Karthus. If you're in the low or mid tier elo, Annie is an OP pick that you want to play.
You wanna play too? It'll be fun.
She deals a solid amount of damage, and like Swain, she's got a little bit of everything. You can't really avoid her damage, and she deals a lot of it, and she has a rather reliable crowd control. She's absolutely capable of carrying games, and we suggest that you guys in the low or mid brackets try to end the patch with playing her or Swain if you're trying to climb. That's going to cover it for the mid lane, so let's head into the bottom lane next. For the bottom lane, let's start by talking about my boy Aphelios.
Our faith will be tested.
It's finally safe to say that Aphelios isn't broken. Well, that's a lie, but it's one that you can accept because his win rates are pretty low right now. His overall win rate sits right above 46%, and high elo players are really struggling with him right now. Challenger players are the only ones that can play him with higher than a 50% win rate. So in other words, he's become a champion that requires a strong foundation of mechanics and team play in order to find success with. He'll stay in the A tier as the placement seems rather appropriate. He can be OP, but the truth is that most players aren't going to find success climbing with him because of how intricate he is.
I'm on the case.
Caitlyn got buffed too, and the results have really shown. 5 movement speed and 3 base AD increased Kate's win rate by 2%. Our analysts told you guys that these buffs were pretty big and thought that Caitlyn would remain a solid S tier pick. They weren't wrong to place her there, but to be real with you guys, she's pretty broken right now. Caitlyn will join Ashe as an OP pick in the bottom lane because of her impressive laning and great scaling as well. Caitlyn is pretty strong at every stage of the game as she has the ability to dominate the bottom lane to provide so much for her teammates as she's a champion that can easily be the team's win con. Caitlyn scales extremely well considering how strong her early game is. It doesn't really feel like she has a weak stage in the game, though there are some points where she kind of feels weaker in terms of her own strength. Aside from the small hiccup in regards to Caitlyn, our analysts believe that the bottom lane tier is still pretty accurate. As a result, we've got Ashe and Caitlyn as our OP picks for the bottom lane, followed by Jinx, Jhin, Draven, Kai'Sa, and Ezreal in the S tier. If you notice, we moved Vayne an entire tier down because of the 2 OP picks this patch.
Impure fools.
They're extremely popular and do really well against Vayne because of their outranging. Because they're picked so often, it's inevitable that Vayne players are picking into unfavorable matchups much more than before. In direct response to this meta, Vayne has gotten significantly weaker and we're moving her down to the A tier as a result. And that wraps up the bottom lane, so let's conclude it with all the supports. Thresh, Yuumi, and Rakan were the targets of the balance changes, so let's go ahead and get you guys up to speed with them. To keep it short and sweet, Thresh and Rakan aren't champions that you really have to think much about. While Thresh did receive a nerf, players are adjusting to them rather well.
It's over when I say.
As a side note, Emax 2nd has become much more popular on Thresh, even in high elo, but pro players are still sticking to the Lantern 2nd max. Players are just accepting the cooldown nerf on Thresh's W, but aren't really letting it impact their play as much. Rakan's buff was a very minor one, so it should come to nobody's surprise that he's also seeing virtually no movement. The one champion that did actually see some serious changes was Yuumi.
You and me, we got this.
We can't say that she's back just yet, but she's definitely going to be a lot better than before. I can't wait to see more and more Yuumis in my game. Yuumi's win rate has jumped up for more than 1% as a result of these buffs that she received to her passive. Her ban rates are slowly climbing once again, and we expect her win rates to slowly rise more as players get used to her playstyle a little bit more. You have to take some major risks if you want to use her passive well, and I'm sure that most players are still testing their limits and coming to an understanding of the do's and don'ts of playing Yuumi. Yuumi remains in the B tier for now, but this is just a case where our analysts just want some more time to assess. One final change that we made to this list is that we've also added Swain to the A tier as well.
Do not confuse cowardice for wisdom.
Just like in the mid lane, this man is going off, and low elo players especially are reaping the benefits of his immense damage and tankiness. Swain is definitely a potent support, as he's got all the utility that you want from a support, but he also doubles as a carry because of his insanely high damage output. Our OP picks for the support is still Lulu, but that might change soon if Yuumi returns to her throne in the near future, because we all know that going against Yuumi is so much fun. The S tier consists of Blitzcrank, Senna, Soraka, Bard, Thresh, Nautilus, Morgana, Nami, Janna, Leona, and Alistar this patch. And that's going to conclude our 10.15 mid-patch update. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to check it out and hope you guys got something out of it. Once again, I want you guys to check out ProGuides.com if you guys are serious about getting better, as we always want to help you guys. We have a ton of useful stuff there, so go ahead and just check it out. Until next time though, I hope you guys stay safe, I hope you guys stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.